Good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Wilson, Ms. Moore.
Ma'am.
Call the order.
Mr. Rickman, Mr. McDowell, Mr. Duval, Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine,
Here.
Mr. Davis, Mayor Benjamin.
Thank you. All righty, can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? We've got some, does anybody want to start? I think the little kids, right?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have the invocation, but I was saying, Councilman McDowell, do you mind if we ask Reverend Levy Johnson to give us an invocation?
Absolutely.
Reverend Levy Johnson, would you please grace us? You know you can pray on the spot. You know you can pray on the spot.
Reverend.
Yes, sir. Can you
Thank
do
you,
the
Reverend.
invocation for us, please?
You can pray, Reverend. Come on.
For this day, thank you for life, health, and strength for the day that you've given us. We ask you right now to govern over these council meetings and everything on this agenda as our elected officials seek to better build and guide this city. To Teresa and her staff and to all that are part of this wonderful city that we call Columbia. We thank you now for the great work that this city is doing, the great work that our people are doing, and the change that we're making in this city to make this one of the greatest cities this side of the Jordan. We ask you now for your blessings and your covering, and for all that believe would say amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, very good.
Thank you, Reverend Levy Johnson.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. At this time, we would ask council to adopt the agenda. Madam Mayor Pro Tem and council, we are going to ask that you defer item 22, the utility relocation project, to June the 4th. And with that, council is asked to approve the consent agenda items 11 through 21, 23, and 24.
So move.
Okay, so is there a motion for the adoption of the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Council is asked to approve the April 2nd, 2019 City Council meeting minutes.
Is there a motion?
Move approval of the minutes.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk would read the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, we will move into a period of presentations and, yes, ma'am.
Consent
Oh,
agenda.
I'm sorry, your consent agenda, my apologies. Consent agenda items 11 through 21, items 23 and 24.
It's been moved by Mr. Medora. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly moved in second. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, if the clerk would read the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
I was so excited, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, to get to our presentations. I'm going to ask you for a moment of personal privilege to add one thing.
Yes,
I don't
ma'am.
know how I did this because we all know who keeps us straight around here, and that's our city clerk, Miss Erica Moore. And I think during our last council meeting, it was the week of Municipal Clerks Week. And so I can't even see you, Reverend McDowell, these beautiful flowers here, but these are for our clerk. And Erica, in particular this year, I wanted to recognize her during Municipal Clerks Week, Miss Erica Moore Hammond, who she got married this past year. And Erica also has achieved her associate's degree in arts and business this year. I don't know if you all knew that about Erica. While she maintains all of the things that she does for us, she's now going on to complete at Columbia College another degree in community and organizational leadership, which I think is so appropriate for what she does. And Erica is just a jewel, and so I felt like we needed to recognize her. So please do that with me at this time.
Thank you so much, Ms. Wilson, and I think we will all agree that Erica keeps us straight, and we are so blessed to have such an amazing city clerk who does above and beyond and is never out of step. So we thank you so much for your service to the city, Erica, and taking care of us.
Absolutely.
Did anyone else want to say anything? Okay.
Our first presentation is item 25, American Public Works Week, the Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Tamika Isaac Devine.
So,
Robert Anderson, our Director of Public Works.
so welcome, Robert. We look forward to Public Works Week every year. We've got our popcorn up here. No peanuts this year?
Our peanuts at Public Works, and I think Kelvin would be a little excited about how much of a mess we make. I was going to start out by saying we didn't bring flowers. We brought popcorn, and thanks for popping the popcorn. We bear gifts to eat, as always, but Public Works Week is always a great significance, and this year it has a lot more significance, I guess, for me after I've been with the city several years and what we've tried to accomplish, and I will get to that. But I want to say that Public Works the Public Works Week started in 1960. There's 38,000 members of the Public Works Association internationally right now. That says how big of an organization we are. And an organization that size has a chance to share a lot of things. There's also 8 divisions in our Public Works Department, but we look beyond the Public Works Department as not just these 8 divisions, but it's also water, Parks and Rec, wastewater, fire, police. We look at everybody because we are a city and we try to accommodate anything that we can. But one thing that we do during the year is we look at our involvement that we have with others. When we get through their slides, we'll get to our involvement. So the involvement is on a national level, a state level, and a local level. So we have a branch level, we have a Midlands branch level that we participate in education. Those education opportunities give us a chance to network just with people in our region, whether it be West Columbia, Casey, Aiken, Newberry, Forest Acres, who I just heard rolled out the same roll carts we did on some of the same schedules. So we have a chance to network with those people. So we have staff that sit on the board. I believe Sarah sits on the board of the local branch. Then we have our state branch. Our state branch is all over the state. We do the same thing, just on a little bigger level. But we have a fairly large board. But Columbia's had such a big presence on the state chapter that we have Missy Gentry, who was a top 10 past president. We have Samantha, who recently completed the Certified Public Works Professional Supervisor class online. It was about 200 questions. I heard about it afterwards. She passed on her first time. She was one of the first 4 or 5 people to take the test in the United States, I believe. Is that correct? So we compliment her on that. But she's also on the National Solid Waste Committee for Public Works. So she sits on a national board also, was just reelected. I, for some reason, am the delegate for the South Carolina chapter, so I'm the delegate to the national, but I've also served as past president and some other roles. So on a national level, we've brought something else. I mentioned Missy Gentry being top 10, but we've had former directors of public works, Miles Hadley, Mark McCain, that were top 10 public works director in the state. We've actually, first time ever, is our national president. A lot of people are going to know who this is. Bill Spearman will be our incoming national president, formerly of Woolpert, and he will take over office in August. So what I'm the most happy about, or 2 things, I guess, is for the first time ever, we're going to hold our conference, our summer conference, here in Columbia. I've pushed for this for about 15 years, maybe 20, and they kept saying, Columbia don't have a lot to offer. Well, Columbia does have a lot to offer. So we are coming here June 19th through the 21st. We will have our state backhoe rodeo here. If you've never seen a state backhoe rodeo, trust me, I believe it's on June 19th. Get with me. It is amazing to see operators take a bucket and take a spoon on a bucket and possibly scoop an egg out of a bucket and put another one without breaking the egg. So they are very talented. So when you say rodeo, understand it's a talent competition is what it is for the best in the state. The winners of the state actually go on to be the national winners. I go back to the state 2 years ago, the first conference we ever had, our national backhoe rodeo was represented by the state of South Carolina out of Charleston. He won the competition for the first time. So it's done very, very good. I believe Ms. Devine is going to give the opening remarks at our presentation. So I've left one last thing out before we get to the presentation, and that's our incoming president this year. And I told her I didn't know whether it was a good thing or a bad thing. But in June, our no other than Dana Higgins will be taking over as our chapter president. So if you have time this week, come down to Public Works. We do have peanuts, we do have popcorn, and we have lemonade. You can make a mess down there, and we'll see what we can do about getting it cleaned up. So thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. And I think I definitely speak for everyone up here and all of our citizens to say how much we appreciate Public Works. I think as you had on your game board here, Public Works is so much deeper. It supports every service that we have in the city, and you really don't know how much Public Works does until you're getting ready for a flood or a hurricane or any kind of inclement weather, and the men and women of Public Works are here day and night, making sure that our city is not just clean but safe, and that we're preventing some tragedies. So we really thank you for what you do, and we appreciate all of you guys. And so it is indeed my honor to read this proclamation. Whereas public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of an understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as stormwater management, sidewalks, streets, highways, solid waste collection, animal control, traffic engineering and operations, forestry and beautification, support services, and fleet services. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depend on the facilities and services, and whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, construction, and implementation, are vitally dependent upon the effort and skill of public works officials. And whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated public works personnel is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, on behalf of our mayor, Stephen K. Benjamin, and along with all the members of Columbia City Council, we do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through 25th, 2019 as Public Works Week in the City of Columbia, and we encourage all of our citizens to applaud the efforts of our local public works employees.
Thank you. There you go.
Ms. Wilson, I also have to add, thinking about their selfless service, when public works workers get a frantic call from a mama at 6 o'clock in the morning because her child's pet has died and doesn't know what to do. So they are definitely there above and beyond, and counseling isn't in their service, but they are good at that as well. So,
Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. As we transition into item 26, I did want to, or maybe you do, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, acknowledge that Mayor Benjamin is out of the country as a result of his U.S. Conference of Mayors responsibilities as president, and Mr. Davis is attending to a family health matter, but we certainly do miss both of them.
Yes, and we pray for both of their traveling safety and mercy, and hope they come back soon.
Yes, ma'am. Item 26, the Tree City USA Award presentation, Ms. Sarah Holler, Deputy Public Works Director.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here tonight to share some really exciting news. The City of Columbia has now been designated a Tree City USA for 40 years. We are the longest running city in the state of South Carolina to have that designation, and we no longer share it with any other cities. I'm sorry, Councilman Duval. We do apply for this every year at the end of the year for the previous year's work. There's 4 standards that you have to meet every year. Those are to have a tree department that is responsible for the maintenance and care of your trees, a tree ordinance. We have to spend at least $2 per person on tree maintenance. And then the best part is our Arbor Day celebration. We celebrate Arbor Day the first Friday in December every year. And we have a program that we do at a local elementary school. If you haven't been, be on the lookout. We invite y'all every year, and it's a really fun, engaging activity that we do, a program at the elementary school. With that said, we will continue to receive this designation for years to come. We hope to keep getting it forever from here on out. So.
Can I have
And I was going to say, I know Mr. Duval has worked really closely, even prior to his service on city council, has worked closely with the city regarding our trees, and I think he has wants something.
I just wanted to say that Chirral was the first city in the state to get Tree City, and Sarah left out one vital requirement for getting the Tree City Award. The person in charge of this Tree City needs to make the application to the U.S. Tree City, and as long as we have Sarah and Caleb coming up behind her, I'm sure that the Columbia will continue to get this yearly. And I'm very pleased to be with still the longest serving city with Tree City.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, we've got an award here. It is from the Arbor Day Foundation, Tree City 40 Years Designation, presented to Columbia, South Carolina, in recognition of 40 years of commitment to community trees. So, Sarah, I'll present this to you. We are really excited for our next 2 presentations. Ms. Wilson?
Yes, ma'am. Item 27, and I'll read 28 as well. The Cardinal Newman Women's Track and Field Team Day and the Cardinal Newman Men's Track and Field Team Day. The Honorable Mayor Pro Tem Tamika Isaac Devine.
All right, so we are like super excited on this recognition. I think we're probably a little bit biased because we know we have a family member, part of this award-winning track team. but is the coach here? If you, hello, would you like to?
Ms.
Yes.
Devine, as Coach John Javis comes up, I would be remiss if I didn't say he is one of our very own City of Columbia employees through the Parks and Recreation Department, and so I think that is even more meaningful. And so we thank him for all that he has done, along with his assistant coaches for this team.
Coach Davis?
Okay. Ms. Devine, in the absence of the mayor and Ms. Wilson, I want to thank you guys for inviting us here. But before I get started, I want to acknowledge my staff. I want my staff to come up here with me. Because without these guys, I promise you, it wouldn't have been done. We got Coach Rudy Crumpton. Coach Crumpton is in charge of my relays, and he did an excellent job this year. You got Coach Chestnut right here. He's in charge of my jumpers. And Coach OJ, he's in charge of my throwers. And I got to say, I'm used to doing this totally by myself. And starting a program from the ground up, these guys, they truly had my back. I was able to get me a little bit of sleep this year, so it made it a whole lot easier. But this group of kids right here, they are phenomenal. I started this program from the ground up, and that's kind of what we call it, from the ground up, 3 years ago with a group of kids that had never run track before. With this group of young ladies, I only have one that was with me when I started the program, and that's Teresa. In her first year, she made it to the state championship. So going back this year, it was a big plus. And for those girls to do something this special, coming from a region, we placed second, third in the region, and we just knew we had what it took, and it took getting on them like they were young. I'm gonna say spanking and a little bit of hard love, but those girls came through in the end, and I got to tell you, we got 2 8th graders on this team, of this 4x1 team. But I want to call up Miss Simone. She's in the 10th grade. Y'all ladies, come on up. I'm 9th grade. I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. I got a group of babies. And Teresa, she is my grandmother of this group because she's the oldest. Her and Courtney. And the true baby of the group is Gabby, and she's got to be my true surprise of this group because she bought into what I wanted to do with this group. Because I think her first year, I think she went home crying every day because she said, I worked too hard. But as you can see, the hard work really paid off with these young ladies. And my last young lady that I'm gonna bring up, she did all my jumps for me. And she became a state champion. And I'm gonna tell you, she learned the triple, the high, and the long jump, and placed in every last one of them. She won the triple jump, only doing it for 3 weeks, okay? And she's in the 8th grade, so we got a lot more love to get out of her. And that's Ann.
So, young ladies, we are, I'm sorry, go ahead, Coach.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we are just so proud of you, and we are it's our honor to be able to recognize you for your accomplishments, not just on the track field, but your accomplishments academically as well. And we look to see great things from all of you. So with that, I am going to read this. Whereas Cardinal Newman High School Women's Track and Field Program, coached by John Javis, has several students placed in the South Carolina Independent School Association State Championship. And whereas in the first year, the women's team finished 12th in the state, and whereas in the second year, the program grew from 21 to 35 athletes with 2 state championships in 2 events, and whereas this year, the program now has 71 student athletes competing in several track and field events, and whereas at the 2019 SCISA Track and Field State Championships, the women's track team finished 5th out of 12 competitive teams. And whereas the winners of the women's team include Erin Allert in the triple jump with a distance of 35-1 meters, and Simone Joseph, Teresa Florence, Courtney Crowder, and Gabrielle David in the women's 4x100 meter relay with a time of 51.84 seconds. Now, therefore, on behalf of our mayor, Stephen K. Benjamin, along with all of the members of Columbia City Council, we do hereby proclaim May 21st, 2019 to be Cardinal Newman Women's Track and Field Team Day in the great city of Columbia, and we would urge all of our citizens to honor and recognize Cardinal Newman High School's women's track team and field team and Coach John Javis as 2019 South Carolina Independent School State Champions in their respective events.
Want to do the boys?
Where you want them? Oh, no.
All right, Coach. Yes. All right, Coach, not to be outdone by these phenomenal young ladies, but I know you've got another team that you need to introduce to us.
I got some boys, but I don't love them like I love my girls. So, but
Wait a minute now.
before I get to my boys, I got some people that are here that mean a whole lot to me. I want to acknowledge my family. That's in the audience right now. If you guys don't mind, please.
Oh.
And I also want to acknowledge my coworkers because I'm gonna tell you, without them and being able to leave and do what I do, it wouldn't be easy. They make it real easy for me. I got my supervisor over here, Mr. Doug Elliott. The assistant superintendent, Ms. Christy Wright. I got the superintendent somewhere, Mr. Kerry Rich, and our director, Mr. Randy Davis. But I'm gonna bring my guys up because I'm gonna tell you, it's beautiful when you see things come together and you're not using glue. It is real beautiful. These guys, when I tell you as a group of coaches, you always want to get it perfect. But when you got a group of guys that want it just as much as you do, it makes it a whole lot easier. And these guys right here, I think everybody, once again, everybody comes back. I only got 2 juniors in this group, and everybody else comes back. So we got another chance to be coming to stand before you again. But I'm gonna bring these guys up here first, my 4x1, and they set the Skeezer record this year in the 4x1. So it was a give and take, and it was beautiful. My first leg was Mr. Jalen Crumpton. And when I say fast, I mean fast. My next guy, I don't even think I've tapped into what he can do yet. And I don't think he realized what he can do yet as far as track and field. This is just his second year running. Mr. Peyton Cooper. Now with Jalen also won the 200 meters this year, and Peyton won the 400 meters. So these guys have a lot of work to do, and their improvement is sky high. Now the third leg of the 4x1, I'm a little biased, and this is the first time, and it feels good because he's my son. So it feels real good. So my son, my oldest boy, John Javis Jr. And the last leg of this 4x1, he also plays tailback on our football team. And when I say he's a phenomenal athlete, whatever he touches, I think is going to be gold. That's why we put him on the tail end of this relay, just to make it happen. Mr. Jalen Montgomery. And Jalen both Jalen and Peyton, they are also members of our 4x4, and that won the state too. But these guys here, they have a lot to offer. They have a lot to offer, Cardinal Newman. And I want to thank you guys for really, really bringing forth this team, both of us, the girls and the boys, because I think this gives us a little bit of incentive to do a little bit better next year. So I really want to thank y'all.
Well, young men, like I told the young ladies, we are so proud of your accomplishments, and we're so excited to see what you have in store ahead of you. So it is my honor to read this proclamation. Whereas Cardinal Newman High School men's track and field program, coached by John Javis, has several students placed in the South Carolina Independent School Association state championships. And whereas in the first year, Emmanuel Cunningham was the state champion in the 400 meters, and the men's team finished 11th in the state. And whereas in the second year, the program grew from 21 to 35 athletes with 2 state championships and 2 events. And whereas this year, the program now has 71 student athletes competing in several track and field events. And whereas at the 2019 SCISA Track and Field State Championships, the men's track team finished second out of 12 competitive teams. And whereas the boys 4x400 relay are repeat champions for the 2018 and 2019 state championships. And whereas the winners on the men's team include Jalen Crumpton in the men's 200 meters with a time of 22.55 seconds, and whereas Peyton Cooper in the men's 400 meters with a time of 51.22 seconds. The relay winners include Deontay Smith, Pete Bleak, Jalen Crumpton, and Peyton Cooper in the men's 4x400 relay with a time of 3.32 minutes, and John Javis IV, Jalen Montgomery, Jalen Crumpton, and Peyton Cooper in the men's 4x100 relay with a time of 42.73 seconds. And now, therefore, On behalf of our mayor, Stephen K. Benjamin, and the members of Columbia City Council, we do hereby proclaim May 21, 2019 to be the Cardinal Newman Men's Track and Field Team Day in the great city of Columbia, and we urge all of our citizens to honor and recognize Cardinal Newman High School's men's track and field program and Coach John Javis as the 2019 South Carolina Independent School State Champions in their respective events.
And before we slide over and take this picture, I want to say I apologize first because I always try to be prepared, but I see it's only 5 of you today, and I only brought 4 gifts. But Teresa,
Oh, don't worry about that.
and this is what we do, and we say we built from ground up. So I always tell my kids, it's not what you receive, but it's what you give that makes you a better person. So we want to offer you guys a token to say thank you for inviting us to the board.
Thank you, Coach. Can I say something?
Yes, sir.
Coach, I just want to take this moment, just a second. Not only, as you mentioned, how proud you are of all these kids, we are too. This is the future of Columbia, and we all recognize that. But I really want to take this moment and thank the parents and the grandparents who had to put up with all the crying that you sent home for all these, not in a bad way, but in a good way. But that's what makes a village, and it's you're pushing them and you making them work hard, and the parents and the grandparents who comfort them and give them ease that they can go back tomorrow and do the best they can. And we appreciate you. We appreciate all the parents and the grandparents who made this possible. But we are so proud of you, so proud of our young kids, and we are delighted to see these are the future of Columbia. So thank you so much
Thank you, sir.
for all you do.
Thank you.
So we just, again, want to thank you all, and I know we had them in the pictures, but before you guys leave, can we just have all the parents and grandparents stand up so that we can recognize you? Thank you, guys. And young men and women, y'all are welcome to stay and watch a zoning public hearing, but we know you have school tomorrow, so if you guys need to leave, we certainly understand.
Thank you. Thank you.
Teresa, why don't you get in?
You got Reggie, look.
I'm not sure if I saw Mr. Starrett. Is he here?
Yes, he's
Yes.
back.
William, where are you? There.
Yeah.
How could I miss that? Green?
I was looking for him too, then I saw his beautiful suit. I was like, how did I miss him? At this time, we will have an update from the Columbia City Ballet, Mr. William Starrett, Artistic Director, the Columbia City Ballet. Hey, William.
58-year history. So we just want to share that with you. We had 65,000 patrons come, and we attest a great deal to our hospitality tax funding. We just really want to thank you for that. We know that $28 is spent above and beyond the ticket sales per person that attended the performance. So we're thrilled about those numbers, and we want to share with you that the funding that we received last year, we're so grateful for, was only 7.5% of our annual budget that is our Columbia budget. So we're very, very thankful that we were able to have such a stellar year. It was our best year we have ever had. So we just feel that when economically it goes well, we just really want to share that. And we want to continue that momentum. So before I talk about next season, I'd like to introduce my staff that I adore so much. And first of all, they'll stand when I introduce them. This is Jason Cobb, he's our company manager. And our development director, that's Jamie White. And our director of finance, that's Robert DeBerry. And a member of our executive board and the head of our Young People's Society, it's called the Bar Society, is Megan Pinkney. We have, of course, a wonderful group of volunteers, and our board of directors is just stellar, and that's a great deal of due to our success is because of the fantastic volunteers. As we enter our 59th season, I want to share with you our educational outreach. We reached 16,000 children last year with our educational outreach series, partnering with some fantastic corporations like Michelin, Colonial, Blue Cross Blue Shield that helped make this happen. Next year, we're doing a brand new children's performance of The Grinch. We never performed that before, and it has a fantastic, important story. As well, in the spring, we're going to be doing Beauty and the Beast, and those old fairy tales had great lessons for our children to learn. And then, of course, we're starting the fall with the beloved Dracula. I keep waiting for that but it keeps selling out. So, Ballet with a Bite. And then our Nutcracker, we do an extensive tours, but it's the largest single South Carolina-produced performing arts event in our state. So I'm very, very proud of our Nutcracker. Thank you. Thank you. And then we do our modern dance series. It's Body and Movement Explored, and we get to work with John Whitehead over at the CMFA Art Space, and we have guest choreographers, and it's all modern, brand new choreography, and so really pushing and exploring new choreography. We're doing a brand new performance this year of a Valentine's Day celebration with the greatest love stories of all time. And then we're doing a world premiere, and we're very, very excited about this. We'll be working with live music, and we're doing a world premiere of The Great Gatsby. I figured with coming into the 20s, 2020, we should celebrate the Roaring 20s. And so we're doing The Great Gatsby with live music, and we're ending our season with Cinderella, the full-length Cinderella, partnering with the other large performing arts organization, the full South Carolina Philharmonic Orchestra. And that will end our season. We're also terrific ambassadors for Columbia, and that we've been invited again to perform Off the Wall. We're going to be performing that this year in Augusta, opening of their new museum, Savannah, Georgia, and the Blumenthal Performing Arts Center in Charlotte. So we're going to continue our ambassadorship of letting people know how great the arts are here in Columbia. But we just want to thank you for your support with the hospitality tax that has really helped us stay on par. We want to continue that momentum, and we just feel that our hands are always reaching, so it's important when we reach goals to thank you, and the support you've given to the company is just so appreciated, and we've had just a stellar year, and we want to thank you so much.
Thank you, William. Thank you so much, and congratulations.
Ms. Vine, we will transition to this last update from Ms. Albritton. As she comes forward, the Executive Director of Fast Forward, I wanted to thank Ms. Utsi and her team. I know that it is a time-consuming task. We recognize young people, but it does mean a lot to them. And Ms. Devine had mentioned, Ms. Moore, that we want to make sure we get all the Richland School District 1 state championship teams recognized as well. I think it's very important. Thanks for the
There are some other schools in the city.
And any of the other SCISA schools, state championships like Hammond and Heathwood, all of the students, I think it does a lot for them to see how government works and also be recognized. So thank you all for your patience with that.
Well, thank you guys for actually allowing us that opportunity. I think everything that we do is very important, but as Mr. Bedore said, I don't think there's anything more important than us recognizing the great accomplishments of our young people and encouraging them to do more.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Hi,
Who
Dee.
helps with that too, with our young people and veterans and everyone else.
Kind of hard to follow children and William Starrett, but I'll give it a shot. You know. Thank you for your continued support for the last 19 years. It'll be 20 in October, just a quick reminder. Over
So
these
just
years,
remember, because you always try and bring us cake, we have a healthy vending policy now, and so you know you
It's
can
over? I can come
you
back
can
with
you
cake?
can bring us something, but just keep in
Bring
mind.
carrots. From the person who had a brownie earlier.
well, there'll be a really big cake in October for our 20th anniversary. You know, for every dollar that y'all have contributed for the last 19 years, we've been able to match
Make
by-
sure you're
a
closer.
little closer, by $4 to $5. And wanted to let you know, we just got another grant. It's a 6-month grant from the Midlands Workforce Development Board. And we'll be working with over 100 people, most of them from Columbia, about 85%, doing digital literacy. I think this is one of the things that we kind of forget sometimes is how we all work together. And by working with Gloria, and I see she's over there somewhere, Gloria Said, working with Gloria, we've been able to really concentrate and strengthen our partnerships with other agencies in the city. So with this big grant that we got for the 6 months, we're working with Homeless No More, Mercy, Alston Wilkes, Babcock Center, all this in Providence Home, all those sound familiar. There are a lot of the clients who we've been working with for years, but because of some of the new things we're trying, we've been able to put labs at each of those locations. So they'll be able to use things when we're not even there, which is kind of nice. So trying to keep this focus on all of us in Columbia bringing our strengths to the table and sharing them and doing what we're good at and not tripping over each other and all trying to do the same thing. So it's really sort of made it all more powerful. And again, I really give credit to Gloria, who talked to us a lot about how we could find ways to support each other better. And I think it's been one of the most successful things that's happened around here in a long time. So about 80% of the veterans that we work with, even who are in the shelter in Lexington, relocate to Columbia. So it turns out that about 90 to 95% of all the people that we work with either start out here or come here. So it's been kind of shocking as we look through those numbers. Next week I'll be in DC presenting at the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans Conference for the 7th time. I'm taking some things to Senator Scott's office and Senator Graham's office and Senator Brown's office on concerns that we have. I'm going to be sending you guys a copy of that too. Senator Brown actually did one of his stops in South Carolina at Fast Forward for his Dignity of Work tour, and he has actually added a paragraph in his book that's coming out in November about his visit with us, and it actually focuses on some of the veterans and one of the kids from Mercy who were there with us. So we're very grateful to have had the opportunity to provide a stop like that and to be able to continue to bring some value, I hope, to folks in Columbia. We've placed, since July 1st, over 140 homeless men, women, and families into employment. So I'm looking forward to doing it again next year.
Fabulous, fabulous.
Thank you. Questions?
What, I had a citizen call me regarding placement or maybe helping find a job for our special needs grandson. I sent her to you. I'm not sure if she contacted you yet.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
But that is one thing that we have really been expanding that program with these funds, with Mercy and working with Babcock Center's employment program. So if there are employers in Columbia who are listening tonight and have some jobs for some pretty amazing people, we have some pretty amazing clients who need an opportunity to try things on again. So, our adult special needs and some of our transitioning homeless. So if y'all would just keep in mind that we still struggle with affordable housing desperately, and something that I just brought to the mayor's attention a couple of weeks ago, the overwhelming percentage of seniors who are struggling in this area, but also in the country. And one of the things they're struggling with that people don't realize is student loan debt. Either they have signed for their children, or during the recession they went back to school. And we have several veterans who are paying $700 of their $750 in Social Security. It's being garnished for student loans. So please think about that as we look at possibilities also for some extra employment for some folks who might look a little more like me then. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for doing. All right, thank you. So we are at 7:02, so I think we are good. So, Ms. Hampton? Do I have to say I call this public hearing to order?
Good evening, City Council. We will begin with a series of annexations. The first is 6313 through 6331 North Main Street, a request to annex, assign a land use classification of UCAC2 and a zoning district of C3.
All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here to speak for or against this annexation? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk would read the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine.
Aye.
An annexation of 160.87 acre portion of 300 Clemson Road, a request to annex, assign a land use classification of urban edge small lot and urban edged mixed residential, and assign a zoning classification of RG1.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this annexation? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. If the clerk, any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Thank you.
From a very large parcel to a smaller parcel at 107 South William Street, request to annex and assign a land use classification of UCAC1 and a zoning district of RG2.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this annexation?
So move.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Okay, properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Annexation at 88 Hillmark Drive, a request to annex, assign a land use classification of UER2 and a zoning district of RS1 single-family residential.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this annexation?
So move.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine.
Aye.
The next two both deal with 120 Sparkleberry Crossing Road, if you care to take them together.
Please.
Yes, ma'am.
They are confirming both the land use classification of recently annexed land as AC3 and confirming the zoning of C3.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against 35 and 36?
Krista, that's 35 and 36.
Yes, sir.
Is there a
So
motion?
moved.
It's been moved. It's properly moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman.
Aye.
Mr. McDowell.
Yes.
Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Moving to rezonings, otherwise known as map amendments. The first is at 1616 and 1620 Gervais Street. Request to rezone the parcel from C3 to C3DD. This is a project that's looking to be redeveloped and currently is split zoned, and development across zoning lines is not permitted, so they're asking to extend.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against number 37? Seeing none, is there a motion? Yes, sir.
Right now, the current proposed developer is for housing, student housing.
Is this the corner across the street from the hotel that's been being constructed for the last 15 years?
It's very near there, yes. It's the Quinn property.
There was
The coffee
no
shop.
discussion at the planning commission from the neighborhoods?
They had previously there was a previous proposal to rezone to allow for unlimited height. They dialed that back, and now we're staying with the existing zoning, which has a height limit, but now they're extending the DD.
What's the height limit?
It's 50 foot, but you can go up to 75 feet if you step back
Lower than
essentially
your
8
house.
feet.
I'm on the first floor.
Okay, any other questions?
Krista, let me ask you a question. What's, I heard you, excuse me, I heard Mr. Duval ask whether or not there had been any community participation. Has there been?
They have been involved. The sentiment has not been overwhelmingly positive about the development, but the development is allowed outright under the zoning classification.
And that's next to the Forever Hotel.
It's across the street.
It's a hotel.
Across the street.
It's a hotel, not a motel.
It's the Quinn property.
Holiday Inn, huh? Holiday Inn.
Don't get me started.
They're actually, they're requesting the extension of it. Not necessarily because of the height, but because it's already over half of the parcel, and in order to develop, you can't build over a zoning line, so it would extend it. It is. They've been in communication with these folks, so if they're not here, I'm assuming
I was
that
gonna say, it's a public hearing. There was no one here to speak for or against.
We would have heard from the neighborhood.
Yeah. Because they just met like last week or something. Well, that's Howard's neighborhood now, so.
Right around the corner.
Is it?
Not yet.
It's already been moved and seconded, right? No? Okay, so it's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded.
Question.
Any further discussion? Yes, sir,
Question.
Mr. McDowell.
Krista, tell me a little bit about, that's the area, I know exactly where it's at. And it's for student housing. What's the, well, maybe I'll get that on second reading. I'm trying to ascertain the size and the capacity of that piece of property and how that's going to play
Less
in.
than an acre.
Yeah, and I probably need to,
Less than an acre.
I need to back up. I think it's multifamily that will potentially be geared towards students. So not the 4 bedrooms. So it's
It's legal is what
it's
you're
legal.
saying.
It's allowed right, it's allowed outright currently. And so,
The reason for the rezoning is because it crosses property lines, and that's why we're doing this, but it's right. Andrew, you look like were you going to add anything, or? No? Okay.
the reason they're extending, so the base zoning classification is fine. The parcel is currently split by the design development overlay, so you cannot build over a zoning line. So they are asking to extend the design district over the adjacent parcel. So it will actually increase the review of the project through their request. It will have to go through the DDRC.
Any further questions? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
No.
Mr. Duval,
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
2508 Chestnut Street. This is a request to rezone the parcel from general residential RG1 to C3.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against this? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So move.
It's been moved and properly second. I'm curious as to this. This is going from residential to commercial. What?
Correct.
What?
Well, it's
It
on the
is.
border.
It's a, yeah.
It is, and yeah, we had quite a bit of discussion about this. Also in the East Central Plan, it calls for this area to be mixed use. So we were following the existing policy guidance of the East Central Plan, along with the adjacent zoning, because as you know, we don't generally recommend commercial zoning to go into a residential area.
I forgot about it.
Is there anyone? I asked that. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We had a motion and second.
Second.
Okay. Probably moved in second. If the clerk will read the roll.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
1517 Gregg Street, a request to rezone the property from office and institutional to and C3. So this is C1 and C3, just to C1. This is another split zoned property that in order to develop requires consolidation of the zoning.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Seeing none, is there a motion?
So move.
It's been properly moved and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk would read the roll.
Aye.
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
We have two text amendments. The first is to amend the table of permitted uses to permit tattoo establishments by special exception only in the C5, the Central Business District.
Mr. Rickerman, you about to get a tattoo?
Yeah, no, actually, this is a very interesting. The lady who owns this tattoo shop performs tattoos for people who have had reconstruction surgery, and that's the bulk of her business. So she wanted to be located downtown, so she'd be close to the hospital. And after speaking with staff and the landlord and everybody else, we felt that this was the best way to do it through a text amendment that would allow to be by special exception, so we just don't have people moving in. So I agreed to put the application up.
Well, we appreciate you doing that.
So moved.
It's been moved. Is there a second? Properly moved to second. Any discussion? Seeing none, the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Your final text amendment is to amend the sign ordinance to exclude signage from the definition of signs. I think you heard Mr. Ando today indicate that they are being fairly aggressive in putting advertising signs at their stops. So this will permit them on the benches and on the panels within their shelters.
Is there anyone here to speak for or against? Seeing none, if Mr. Bador has moved, is there a second?
Second.
Probably moved as second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
Aye.
Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
And that concludes your zoning public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Hampton.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, we will move into a period of ordinances. Second reading, item 42, ordinance number 2019-025, providing for the issuance and sale of City of Columbia, South Carolina special obligation bonds or notes, the hospitality fee pledge, Series 2019, in an aggregate principal amount of not exceeding $4.2 million in order to finance the acquisition, renovation, and equipment of certain capital projects.
Is there a motion?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll.
Mr. Rickman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval, Mr. Badura, Mr. Vine.
Aye.
Ordinances, first reading, item 43, ordinance number 2019-027, amending section 1935, receptacle requirements, the placement of receptacles.
Mr. Duval, you're going to make the motion with the amendment?
Let Mo make it. You want to make it, Mo? Okay, I move approval of the ordinance, and I would like to offer an amendment number 1, that in section 19-35E3, we delete the words "at least 5 feet from" and add the word "beyond."
It's been moved. Is there a second? Right, it's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, is there, if the clerk will read the roll?
Mr. Rickman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura? Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Item 44, ordinance number 2019-032, annexing 111 Sparkleberry Crossing Road, the TMS number as listed in Council District 4.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
It's been properly moved in second. Any discussion? Seeing none, if the clerk will read the roll?
Mr. Rickman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura? Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Item 45, ordinance
I'm
number...
sorry, I just had a question on that. I don't know if I've seen this before. It just said the planning commission recommendation was pending. Is there? I don't know what. Oh, it's passed. Okay, all right, thank you.
Come on now, I'm trying to expand my district, y'all. Stay out of the way.
It's expanding. That's what we talk about. 45.
Yes, ma'am. Ordinance number 2019-034, authorizing the city manager to execute a contract of sale for the transfer of 2924 Hope Avenue in Richland County.
Mr. Bador?
Yes, sir.
100% complete. Just kind of give me a heads up what's going on.
Yes, sir.
Please.
Ms. Said will come forward. We're our
Thank you.
Director of Community Development.
Welcome, Ms. Said.
Good evening. Thank you. To give you an update on this particular piece of property, the city actually funded a CHODO, Community Housing Development Corporation, several years ago, and they owned several pieces of property that we ended up having to take back in deed in lieu of foreclosure. So this particular house was already leased to the person that's interested in purchasing it.
Okay.
We did rehab it for her, kept it as an affordable piece of property, and she's interested in buying it. We've been working with her for over 2 years. She's improved her credit. She and her son are very happy in the area, and so we'd like her to purchase the house.
And she's borrowing the money from CDBG fund, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I'm good with that. Just,
All right.
yeah. So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. It's been moved in second. Any further questions? Seeing none, if the clerk would read the roll?
Mr. Rickman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Moving into a period of appointments, Ms. Jenkins will assist council. The appointments for this evening are the Citizens Advisory Committee for Community Development and the Food Policy Committee.
Okay. And so, Ms. Jenkins, in the last meeting, we held the Citizen Advisory Committee, and there were 2 appointments, one to be made by Mr. Rickman and one to be made by Mayor Benjamin. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
In Mayor Benjamin's absence, he did provide me the name of his, not his appointee.
Okay.
And that would be Mr. Mark Brown.
Okay.
Mr. Rickman, do you have your appointee? Okay. Do you want us to continue to hold that one?
Please.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll hold Mr. Rickman's appointment. So I will make the motion to appoint Mark Brown as the mayor's appointee. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been properly moved in second. If the clerk will read the roll?
Mr. Rickman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Badura?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye. All right, the Food Policy Committee?
There's been one application that's come in since, and it's a total of 5 applications, so it includes the 4 that you had previously, and then a new applicant,
And
Richard Chelsea.
Did we re-advertise?
We did.
Okay, and we got one additional?
We got one. I don't mind re-advertising or
Because you're asking
sending it
for
out
4, aren't you?
again.
You're asking for 4, aren't you?
Yeah, I think we had a concern. We wanted to make sure that we had a good district representation.
That particular committee is very large, and maybe we could do without getting some people on there and getting it down to a more workable group.
Right. So far they've still been meeting, and I have their meeting schedule and locations. They've been providing minutes. So things are going smoothly. I think they're just at some point looking to get their 4.
So right now, out of the applicants, we have 1 applicant from District 1 and 4 applicants from District 2.
Yes. And the latest one is Mr. Richard Chesley at the top.
If you look at, so out of that, Ashley, out of the current members, when you have district representation, there was actually, you've got someone from every district. Are any of those people rolling off? What would be the number if we appoint these? Because the applicants are heavy in District 2.
They are, let me see. It looks like other than the positions that we're filling, the majority of them are staying on.
So are you guys comfortable with going ahead and, well, it says.
Well, actually, excuse me, it says June 2019.
2 are coming off of District.
Yeah.
1 off of District 1, and looks like.
What were you saying, Ms. Erica?
2 are coming out of District 3.
Okay.
District 3 is losing 2.
Okay, Erica said that District 2 is losing 3?
District 3 is losing.
District 3 is losing 2. Sorry.
District what now?
District 3 is
3.
losing 2. That will leave 2 from District 3.
And we have no applicants from District 3.
No, we do not.
Hold it. Can you hold it?
And I can look at an alternative way as well. I know we send it out to our distribution list that we have, but I can check on other ways to advertise it and send it out. And
Well, and I guess, and I would just say this, and then Mr. McDowell and then Mr. Bedore. Part of this, of course, the interest for this type of committee, you're going to get people who either kind of work in food policy, healthy eating, or people who live in food deserts. So I think that having so many people from District 2 probably notes an interest of the fact that District 2 and District 1 are typically food deserts. So I think we can continue to try and recruit folks, but the reality is we might not necessarily have, as long as we have someone represented from each district, I think that we need to keep that in mind. But most important are the folks who have some kind of expertise and a passion about this issue. And so if that means we've got more people from a side of the city that has more of the need, I think that makes sense.
And is in a food desert.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Madam Mayor, let me ask you this. Is it appropriate for us, we could very well defer this again until next meeting.
We can.
Could we defer it to make sure that the numbers and the names are, and the districts and the representation, it's all there, I think. And I think what Ms. Devine is asking, of course, is do we want to continue to enlarge areas when I think we've got an appropriate number of persons already on that committee? So I would simply ask for deferral.
Okay.
Mr. Bedore, you had a comment?
Yeah, the only comment I got, or feedback I got, is the committee is too large. So,
It's 15 people, I think, or
I mean,
supposed
Yeah,
to be
that's what
15.
Mr. Duvall said.
so I thought I had one applicant who's going to apply, but he decided not to. So I really don't have anybody in the back pocket for me to recommend or nominate at this time. So, but if you I think there's only one person from District 3. The other two resigned. So if y'all need somebody from District 3, I'll have to send an e-blast to my district and get some
Okay.
people interested.
I can send that back out to you all so you can have a clean copy in the application again with the send out to whoever.
And then
Move
Ms.
to
Jenkins,
the
and then Ms. Jenkins, one more thing. Can we make sure, I'm just looking now at the applicants again, like you've got 2 at District 2, but that's based on their work address at DHEC. But it looks like they're both out of the city.
Yeah.
Can we just make sure that we double
think
check the districts that they
Yeah,
live?
so I've checked their home. Yeah, their home was out of the district. I think for this, it was live or work. But I'll double check that.
Yeah, and that's fine. Just when you make the note for us, just note if you have, like, for instance, you have District 2,
Outside.
note, say, lives outside of the city,
Got it.
works in District 2, just so we're clear. Because I think as we just said about the District 2, actually, the 2 folks who are applicants saying they're in District 2, neither one actually is District 2. They actually both live outside the city. So we note that. And then another suggestion just would be is as we are looking, we may want to, first of all, ask existing committee members, because they might have, if they're passionate about this issue, they may know others who are passionate about the issue who may want to serve. And then secondly, maybe an organization like Eat Smart, Move More.
Okay.
Would be, would have some folks that are interested.
So I can attend their next meeting because I have their schedule and then pitch it to them and find out who they recommend. And you said what was the name of the other organization?
Eat Smart, Move More. I know that food policy is one of the things that they work on, and we might have some current members that might be affiliated with them, but actually contacting the organization itself and see
can
if
do
they
that.
have some folks, or they might send it out to their lists because they have a vast list of people who are interested in this issue.
Perfect. I'll do both of those.
So we're not looking for another applicational process, but perhaps deferring
wouldn't-
this until June?
I wouldn't pay to advertise again. I just think
Okay.
that we can use our current resources to see if we have some other folks, and then it may be worth considering what Mr. Bedore and Mr. Duval said about maybe not filling the committee to capacity if it's too many
Okay.
folks. Okay.
So I guess it would be the capacity if we appointed all four.
That's correct.
Okay. Understood. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, okay, we are. No, I was gonna say, I don't know if it's a record yet, but, because we had the public hearing. We didn't have the public hearing at 7, we probably would have gotten out here sooner. Yeah. But are there any matters to be considered that were discussed during the work session? Seeing none, any council committee or reports? You guys did not meet today?
No, I couldn't get Mr. McDowell out of bed this morning.
You know, I don't know if there is. I'd like to bring something up, and that's something that we've talked about, especially when we're talking about budget season and all that. I wonder if I need to make a motion to maybe direct the city's manager and the city staff to look at issuing a GO bond to build Station 2, and maybe allocate some funds for the quiet zone that we've been discussing, trying to allocate some funds for it. My thought is maybe issue a GO bond of $5 million to build the station and allocate $1 million for the quiet zone. I don't know if that we need to make a motion for that, or I just want to make that.
City manager.
Gotcha.
She could just present that at a work session, and then council can
Appreciate
discuss
that.
whether
Yep.
or not
I just
that's
want to
a
make
direction.
sure that we at least look at it and come back with some solid numbers.
Yes. All right. Ms. Moore, was there anyone who signed up?
No, ma'am, the individual that signed up struck their name from the record.
Okay. Is there anyone in here who would like to address it? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Stroman, good to see you.
Second.
Thank you for being here. So we have a non-debatable motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, Mr. Rickerman, Mr. McDowell, Mr. Duval.
Aye.
Mr. Badura. Ms. Devine.
Aye.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everyone.
You
Here,
too.
Daniel,
Erica,
come here.
I didn't answer.
Oh, well, we going home.